Hello, welcome to VoltScript Ventures Part 01 Sub B. VoltScript in a dev container. My name is Devin Olson, and I've been doing this software development thing for a very long time. Some of you may even have run into me over the years. I work with an incredible team here at HCL Labs, and we've cooked up some pretty cool stuff that I'd like to tell you about. But first, let me talk about some other videos in this series. You might want to check them out. Part 01 is Rocky Oliver does an introduction and an install of VoltScript on Windows. Part 01 Sub A, I do an install on Mac OS for ARM Mac. And Part 01 Sub B, that's this one, I'm going to going through installing in a dev container. Let's start with our IDE. We use Visual Studio Code. That's the recommended IDE. It's the officially supported IDE for HCL VoltScript development, and it is in fact the IDE that we here at HCL Labs use. It works on most common platforms. VoltScript in a dev container. Basically, it's a Ubuntu base OS dev container, and this can be used in Linux OS, can be used on Mac, Intel, other OSs, Windows, whatever you want. Prerequisites for installing VoltScript in a dev container on your Mac or on, I guess, any device you want. You need to have a dev container desktop, either Docker or Rancher. I use Rancher on this machine, so there we go. You need to have in Visual Studio Code installed. You need to have dev containers extension for VS Code. That's available from Microsoft Visual Studio Marketplace. I'm not going to walk through installing that. Once you install Visual Studio Code, you should be able to understand how to install that extension. And you'll need to get the VoltScript Docker image. Let's do the demo and see if I can walk you through this. So the first thing you should take a look at is there's VoltScript documentation we have produced. It's at help.hcl-software.com. You can go there and get the latest and greatest VoltScript documentation. Right now we're in EA4 release, and in that documentation area you can go to Visual Studio Code Setup, and we actually walk through. We have very detailed instructions on how to install VoltScript in a Docker container, and basically this is going to be the guide that I'm going to use for this demonstration video. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to go and get the Docker image, and you can get that from Harbor, HCL-IO, and you can go ahead. Once you go to Harbor, you will log in. Once you've authenticated on Harbor, go ahead and go to the projects page, go up to the search Harbor area, and type in Volt MXGo -EA. Go ahead and search for that. It'll list all your projects and the various repositories, and the repository that we are interested in is this one here, Volt MXGo -EA/VoltScript dev container. You're going to come in here. This gives you all of the downloads and stuff that we're worried about. What you're going to want to do is, because we're going to be using this via Docker command line, we're going to need to go over here to your user profile, select your user profile, and copy this CLI secret to your clipboard. Also make note of the email that you use for this user profile. Go ahead and open up a terminal window, and from here we're going to log in using our login credentials. Docker login https://hclcr.io. Now, this is important. I have already authenticated and I don't really wish to clear my credentials. So what's going to happen to you versus what I'm going to demonstrate are slightly different. When you enter this command, you're going to be asked for your email address. Make a note, that's the email address that was in your Harbor login. That's the email address. It'll ask you for that email address. The next thing it'll ask you for is your password. You're going to paste that CLI secret that you've copied to your clipboard in as the password to authenticate. In this situation, when I do this, because I already have existing credentials, it's just going to go ahead and authenticate me. Now, if you've already authenticated to Harbor via command line, you're good to go. You'll get the same behavior that I'm going to get here. So I log in, I succeed, yay. So now what I want to do is I want to pull that latest image, and from the documentation that I suggested earlier, you can copy and paste. And basically we're going to do a Docker pull and where we're pulling from and the path, and then this is the container that we're going to pull from, and that's the version, that's the latest version that we have. So just go ahead and issue that command to pull this. It's going to take a few minutes to pull it down. Once your download is completed and you've finished pulling it, you could verify it by asking Docker to list the images. Docker images. And you'll see right here, there's my dev container. That's the latest one, 1.03. It's 2 weeks old at this point in time, but I have now pulled that image. Okay, so let's move on to the next part and actually launch Visual Studio Code. Here we are. I'll make this full screen, and the first thing I'm going to want to do is open a working folder. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Open Folder. And let's see, I'll do this in my projects, and I'm going to create a new folder in here, and I'm going to call this VoltScript Ventures Part 01 Sub B. Create. Here we are. We're going to go ahead and open that up. Nice clean new folder, nice clean workspace. Now I need to do a few interesting things. The first thing I need to do is from within Visual Studio Code's workspace, I'm going to need to create a new folder. I need to name this folder .dev container. Here I go. So I have a .dev container folder, and within this folder I need to create a new file, and that file is going to be called devcontainer.json. There's my dev container JSON file. It's currently empty. I'm going to need to populate it. I need to populate it with the bare minimum content. So going back to the documentation that I referenced earlier from HCL Software's VoltScript installation, I'm just going to paste this JSON right in. What I'm doing here is I'm telling VS Code to use this image, which is the latest 1.03 image, and use these extensions, okay? These extensions, they're important. They are VoltScript, excuse me, they are Visual Studio extensions, and these are the .vsix files that I want to use. These files essentially tell VS Code how to work with VoltScript. So what this JSON is doing is that it's telling Visual Studio, hey, I want you to use a dev container, and I want you to use this image, and I want you to use these VS Code extensions from within that container. The VoltScript extensions are already loaded in the container image, which means you do not have to install them yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file, and there we have it. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my command palette, Command-Shift-P, and I'm going to select Dev Containers, Reopen in a Container. And this will take a moment to reopen. You can see the status of the operation displayed near the bottom right of your workspace. An important note here, this will only work if your Rancher or Docker desktop is already running. If it's not running, you're going to get an error. Once the reopen in dev container has completed, you will see an indicator blue bar on the bottom left-hand corner of your workspace telling you that the workspace has opened in a dev container. Basically, at this point, you're free to start writing your VoltScript. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder here, and I'm going to call it source, well, src. And within that, I'm going to create a file, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, how about main.vss. Now here I am in the file, and because it's a .vss file and we are running in a container, and I can look at my extensions by clicking the Extensions tab and see the extensions we called out in the devcontainer.json file are already installed as part of this dev container. That's important. So when I come back to this source VSS file I was working with, VS Code now knows about VoltScript. So when I start typing VoltScript code, such as option declare, option public, sub initialize. Now I'm only doing this to prove to everybody that this code works. Print hello world, and remove that nice exclamation point. End sub. And now I'm going to go ahead and bring up my command palette, Command Shift P, and then I choose VoltScript, save and run script, and I press enter. Hello world. So there you have it. Okay, that's the end of the demonstration on installing VoltScript in a dev container. Thank you for joining me. I'd like to say thanks to Bob Balaban, a friend of mine, the man who kind of got LotusScript going and introduced the idea to build that scripting language, and did the same thing for VoltScript. The man was a genius, and he helped lead us down this great path. Thanks a lot, Bob. And to everybody for joining in on this video, thanks very much for joining. Peace be with you, and be excellent to each other.